Hi everyone, my name is Paige and you are watching Elevate Filipino TV. It's the place where you want to be to discover possibilities, unlock your potential so that you can finally create a life and a business that you love. Joining me today is my dear friend Brandon Benzon. Brandon is a financial advisor who is on a mission to educate young individuals and families on how they can be properly protected, debt-free, and live a life that is financially independent. Hi Brandon, welcome.
Hello, Paige. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited. You know what, guys? Before we started this recording this, Brandon was actually really excited sharing his story, and I just had to stop him because he was sharing so much value up front, and I needed to just record it so that you all can benefit from it. And so, Brandon, for those of you who may not know you, I would love for you to share your story of transformation. You know, how did this all get started for you?
For me, so as I was sharing you from before, me being a financial advisor was basically the last thing in my mind, right? Because being the fact that being in this business literally happened by accident. And what happened was that traditionally, being Filipino as we are, the most common industries we usually get into is things into hospitality or into nursing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was supposed to go into kinesiology and health sciences, stick it out for at least 4 years at York University. And after being there for at least 2 years, I didn't really feel the program was for me. I mean, I went through a lot of lectures. I also went through a lot of parties because York University is basically a party school. I even joined the Filipino club for like 1 week, but I was still feeling lost. And then still didn't really feel that the program was really meant for me. So in my second year, I did the most radical decision to basically just drop out. And at that time that I dropped out Page, what happened was that I was going through my version of my midlife crisis, the early age, in my early 20s, right? And how this business and becoming a financial advisor and getting licensed was literally not on my main focus and my main career path. In fact, I didn't want to do anything involved with sales. I just wanted to be a regular 9 to 5er, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the situation I was kind of thrusted into the business, right? And how the year that I dropped out, what happened was that I was actually on a date with my girlfriend in a nearby mall in Toronto, actually. And how I came across this business was literally by accident. Like I basically come across a high school friend of mine's. He was basically licensed. He was looking for some talent to help out on the sales side of things. He thought of me because in my current situation that I was young, didn't had any school, had no job, had no one was basically reaching out to me. He's just like, you know what? I may as well give you a chance. I'm just like, wait, what? Because back then, as much as I'm talking to you right now for the past couple of minutes, me speaking in front of somebody right now was nearby impossible. This would have been a noble, like Nobel Prize, it would have been a lifetime achievement because I was so socially awkward and so socially filled with anxiety. The fact that I didn't really had the ability to converse and to really emote my thoughts towards boards, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how I had a bad stutter, like really a bad stutter to the point where when people like hear me talk like one sentence, you just feel like stammers and it feels like an earthquake shaking, right? So like me being in this business and knowing the fact I have to talk to people, what was even worse was that I have to talk to people much more older than me and this guy that basically had a faux hawk. I'm not kidding you. This is true, right? And the fact that I had to go in front of people and say, I'm going to be your quote unquote financial advisor, I didn't really see that at that period of time when my friend offered me that opportunity. So I gave him so much excuses. I don't believe in this. I don't know if it's for me because of my anxieties and my insecurities of who I was as an individual of my current present state, not looking into the future, right? And how had it not been for my friend to keep on motivating me and my girlfriend that was basically, the late the flat line, if you don't take this thing seriously, I'm not taking you seriously. Well, somewhere down the lines of that, not necessarily that, but more towards of how I tried volunteering at another place, and it didn't really wasn't really helping me in that certain format and wasn't really leading me to a proper career direction. She basically blatantly put it out. If your friends basically gave you an opportunity, why not take him seriously and see where this goes? You don't know what's gonna happen. So what that basically was hook, line, and sinker for me because girlfriend basically just decided to, lay down the line. And how that basically forced me in going to the orientation, thinking to myself, oh, they're gonna talk about how much money they make, they're gonna talk all about the hype, it's gonna be one of those meetings, right? And how what happened was that when I was watching through the meeting itself, I realized how much of a need there is for what I do. And I still hold this today from the time that I was there at that meeting. How the person that was speaking and hosting that meeting at that time talked about how he came back from 2 meetings, well, before starting that orientation. He had a meeting between someone that was really rich, a rich dentist that lived in the Bayview, like Richmond Hill type
Oh
of
yeah,
area.
I've been
Yeah,
there.
like Maseratis, Bugattis, that type of like
Mhm.
anything with an like exotic like car names, right? And
Yeah.
how he sat down with that family as a scheduled appointment. The next following appointment was the very opposite of the Bugattis and Maseratis, was in Jane and Finch. Right? And for those who are not familiar with the Jane and Finch, it's kind of opposite the way that the rich area is in the not so rich area, right?
Mhm.
And how, in spite the fact that he dealt with 2 different families, the one thing that was very true was the fact that they didn't have an understanding of how money worked. And I
Mhm.
basically was so skeptical to myself and yet so curious to see how would that apply to me and my family. And I figured that out on the first time. What happened was I sat down with a cousin of mine. She was basically like the second family. Right? She lived in a box-based apartment, paying close to $1,000 to $1,300 per month on rent in St. Jamestown, the east end of downtown Toronto.
Mhm.
She was barely making ends meet with her current job, and she had an insurance policy that was way out of her budget because she had rent to pay, food and expenses, her kid, her newly arrived husband, and all these other bills. The fact that she had a life insurance policy that was close to at least $400 to $500 each and every single month, but when we compare it to apples based on her current needs, she could have had a coverage for the same amount of coverage. Instead of paying $400 to $500 a month, it could have been no more between 50 to 100. And we
Mhm.
realized that the policy that she was sold to, funny enough, she didn't even understand what she had because, like, when she looked over the contract details, it looked like nothing more than brilliant gibberish.
Mhm.
So explained to her, it felt like simple English. And how what was crazy was that the policy that was sold to her on the life insurance wasn't really meant for her current benefit, but obviously the benefit and best interest of the agent. And it got
Mhm.
more serious, Paige, as I got more independent and started doing my own business. How it got so serious to the point when I got my investment license, I dealt with a gentleman that I met at a networking event. He said that he had over $87,000 of his life savings, trusted an advisor that worked at a bank I will not mention, right? Confidential program purposes on that matter. But the fact that he had $87,000 invested within that friend of his that worked at the bank, and he was promising all these rates of returns, all these benefits, all these guarantees, but it wasn't really guaranteed anything because we looked at the statements literally in plain English. The 87,000 they'd invested in that year dropped down to 85 grand. And how that became more prevalent with every single person that I sat down with. It's not just the lack of education, it's the constant misinformation that people are given with.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
fact that there are people out there that wear the same licenses as me, wear the same suit, speak the same language as I do, but I feel that majority of the clients that I've basically developed in my career and industry have been people from really bad advice. And my
Mhm.
mission, apart from really just educating people about the basics of financial literacy and teaching them how to be on the proper game plan to the things that you mentioned in terms of proper protection, eliminating debt, making sure that their investments are in check, and the fact that they have, I can't really guarantee a return themselves, but more towards what great track record could be suited for you because everybody is different. And I want to be sure that I'd be able to create these game plans, teach these concepts, and do seminars I've done in the past. Funny enough, when I dropped out of like York U, and still to this day, I still kept in touch with people that were there at the Filipino Club, and I hosted my very first seminar there for the Filipino Student Association in New York. And so interesting enough that it's so interesting for anyone that's watching this right now that's young, they're trying to figure out their lives. Use me as an example. The fact that I dropped out of like university, parents did not support what I did. The
Ooh.
first, like, still to this day, they're kind of iffy about it, but everything's a little bit calmed down right now. But
Uh-huh.
realize that for people that are watching this right now, even if you have a goal and dream and you're not too sure about it, and even at the end of the day, that people are not supporting you as much as they're close to you as friends, family, or even close to blood, you still got to still got to be persevering, right? You
Mm.
still got to be able to find a way to make it work if you believe it the most. And it's the only person that has to believe it is obviously you and your goal and your dream or whatever passion you're trying to fulfill, right? And that's something that I discovered later on in my career and still to this day, there's people out there, you know, that may have that negative friend or family that may not look at it like you try to pursue your business and say, oh, it's too hard. Maybe you should work a 9 to 5, especially with our culture in our community. And why it's so important that, you know, whose dream are you gonna fulfill? Is it their dream? Is it going to be yours? And it's my dream today to keep on doing what I'm doing, because I know that there's so much people out there that are not given the proper advice and need that certain person to at least guide them from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I find that what's powerful here is, you know, you really targeted that. It's so important that for you to really look at your life and see whose dream are you going to live? Is it their dream or your dream, right? And
Yeah,
when you mentioned midlife crisis at the age of 21, 22, I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers here can relate. I
yeah.
certainly relate to that because I was 22 when I quit my 9 to 5 job. And in fact, I was a graduate of, I'm a registered holistic nutritionist by trade, by degree, but
Wow.
obviously what I'm doing here has nothing to do with it, right? And if there are parents watching this, I know that some of them might be like, oh my gosh, you know, like, because college is such a big part of our, I guess, like our culture, right? Like getting a 9 to 5 job, being in that corporate job, or working in the health industry. It's like the markers of success for us. But really, ultimately, like just what you said, it's about how you feel about yourself and the life that you're living that really determines what success is. And so I want to dive deeper into your story in the beginning, because you had mentioned, you know, you're this guy, you're this kid with a faux hawk and walking into this home saying, I'm your financial advisor.
Yes.
But what they don't know is, like, I mean, obviously with everyone starting a business, so this can be relatable to any business really. But I know that there are going to be some viewers here who are also financial advisors or wanting to become one or exploring that, right? Share with us the notorious story where you were at the mall walking around.
Oh
What
God.
happened?
Okay. So part of my business is a bit of client acquisition in terms of developing like clients on the insurance and investment side. And part of the business also involves an agency and licensing component, right? So I'll also have the ability to build a brokerage within a brokerage, just to make it simple. If anyone has more questions about that, feel free to DM or just reach out to social media just in case, just to explain that further. But yeah, part of me and my so-called lead generation before the Facebook, before the social media, before having, you know, a trusted community, was me going around malls and talking to any people that basically came within 3 feet. And then remember so this was my whole first experience of prospecting. When I ran out of friends and family, wasn't really that much, and I didn't really have that much credibility, right? Mohawk, young guy, not really that great in terms of professionalism at that time being. It took a time to develop, right? And me delving into that whole prospecting world was really scary, because the first time that we basically decided, that me and my friend was still in the business at that time, say like, okay, we're gonna go talk to people, we're gonna go to malls, and we're gonna see how it turns out. So before that happening, funny story, actually, they were like, the office that we were at, there was actually a bar not too far from there. So I felt that, okay, if I need to talk to somebody, I have to have quote unquote liquid courage. So basically what happened was that I ordered actually a bottle of Smirnoff. They basically like douse that down. You're just like, you can't do that like when you're drunk. And then he basically takes me to McDonald's nearby at the mall, makes me eat the burger to soak up all that liquid courage. And now I'm basically forced to myself to, oh God, I have to talk to people now. I'm actually an introvert for myself, right? So basically what happened was that I remember talking to this one girl and I couldn't speak for the past 2 minutes. I was like, hi, and blank, nothing. And that took a bit of time. Whereas even though I should have, like, the way that I basically generate clients and develop leads right now is totally different from way from before. But that was leading into my development of building up my confidence, building up my communication, right? And how me going into malls was really just more of a practice, even though it looked kind of weird seeing this guy that was basically all happy giddy Filipino, basically wearing a suit and trying to like converse and see if they're trying to provide them opportunities, see if they needed my services. It was weird at first, even for me, because it took a bit of time to talk to enough people, even to the point where it was just enough progression to even just to get to a question or getting into their contact or number. The first number that I got, I felt that, oh my God, I feel like a millionaire, right? Because is an introverted guy that decided, to be able to get someone's contact, and that person was able to turn out something to the business, the client, and potentially getting their license as well. And how that took a bit of time, it took a little bit of adversity, right? So people that are considered to be in business for themselves, it does take adversity. Because if you don't necessarily face adversity up front, how are you able to grow and develop? How are you able to, be able to go through challenges? And at the times of those challenges constantly keep coming at you for yourself, how can you overcome that if you don't know how to deal with it in the first place? So thank God that I was able to do that right up the front, even though it was really scary. And security caught on, basically thought I was soliciting. It got kicked out 9 times. One of the 9 times I got kicked out was actually being confused for Jehovah's Witnesses for doing the same thing I was. So that's a true story, right? But I kept them. But funny enough, I kept on being consistent with my work effort, right? The fact that in a year I developed over 3,000 leads by myself.
Wow!
I outworked every single person that was basically in that office that was licensed before me. There was a famous quote that I still apply to today: "What you lack in skill, you work in numbers." And I worked every single person that was out there. I brought in 100 new people within that year to look into the business as well. 10 people were able to get licensed in the industry in terms of that. Out of those 10, they led me to at least another 10 to 20 different clients as well. And there's some of them are still with me today at that time being, right? And that basically, even though it was really scary at first, talking to strangers, trying to see if they'd be interested in terms of my service, especially for people getting to sales for the very first time. It's always the fear of just talking to people and the fear of rejection. And I feel that the way that I was able to overcome it was really just being more comfortable with myself rather than the fear of what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think, the story here is really, when you said, this is how you got started in the beginning, it's not your system now. But whenever you're starting a business, it doesn't matter if you're in the, a financial advisor or any business really. I can relate to it because you really have to be in the trenches when you're getting started. And you talk about, developing mental toughness and the power of persistence. So obviously it showed with you being, by the way, were you kicked out 9 times in one day, or was that in different days?
Gradually.
Okay. I thought it was in one day.
Gradually.
Yeah. So, being in the trenches allow you to develop that sense of mental toughness. And oftentimes in order for you to succeed, and, guys, Brandon's been doing this for what, 6-7 years?
6 to 7 years now.
So he's, there's a lot of things that transpire within that 6 years. And oftentimes people give up within the first year of their business. Right. And so you can learn from his story that it's okay to be, do weird things. I mean, granted it's legal, but I mean, you gotta be in the trenches, right? Yeah. A lot of people don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to face that, ultimately they don't want to face themselves, the fear of rejection, the fear of failure and stuff like that. And so if, let's say someone, because you shared with me a story, when you were getting started, you were this anxious kid who was socially awkward and didn't know the direction in your life. Obviously now as a financial advisor, you serve as a mentor to a lot of people, to your clients and to your team members. But I want to find out, what role did coaching and mentorship play in your personal story?
It helped out so much, because the way I look at coaching and mentoring is basically the analogy of driving to a new destination that you want to go on vacation on, right? What's the point of driving to a new destination if you don't have the map, coordinates, or the directions on your GPS? Mm-hmm. So being able to have coaching and mentorship is basically the GPS and direction in terms of harnessing and sharpening your current skills, working your mindset, and just being better version of who you are, right? And how the mentorship that I had from all these individuals within that office, or other people that I met at networking events, that they saw my attitude, they saw the way I really aspire to be and the potential that they see. Thank God for those people that helped me along the way to show and to better correct myself, even the mentors that I have today, right? The fact that they were able to see, okay, he's this quirky, socially awkward Filipino kid. He has, the good thing is that he has a lot of energy. The professionalism is not necessarily there, but what if we tweak it a little bit and it got better, right? To the point where a lot of one-on-one interactions, a lot of coaching sessions, a lot of training meetings every single like Saturday or every single Wednesday, right? And how that it took consistency, because as much as great as it was working with a coach, what really made it work was the constant development behind it. The way I look at it is that working with a coach and working with someone of mentorship is no different in terms of working out the body, right? When you're basically working out and trying to develop like muscles in your bicep and trying to get to like Arnold Schwarzenegger status, what's going to really work, right? We're working with a coach. Is it best to be able to do it just like one rep each and every single day, or continuous reps, right? And the fact that the continuous development and those continuous times of me spending time with them, me observing somebody doing a sales call, me observing somebody do paperwork, right? Me observing somebody be able to overcome objections and basically do the business that I'm doing right now with the mentorship that I have, it helped elevate my game, but in slow progression, because it wasn't necessarily perfect at first. And still to this day, I still look towards mentorship right now, despite being in business for such X amount of years, because I know that I can still do so much better, because the commitment towards self-improvement never ends.
Yeah, I love that. And what really stood out here is the consistency. You know, you mentioned the consistent contact with your coaches and your mentors, and also the consistency in serving, right? Like actually applying what you're learning so that you can further develop. Now let's bring that into, you know, the conversation of compound interest, because I know that you're all about numbers, right? Like you love personal development and you love numbers. And I want to find out the bridge between the connection between the two. Why is it important? Or I guess like one question first is, why is personal development connected with improving or, you know, financial development?
Because the key thing behind that is that, you know, people may work on terms of their health, their mindset, and most importantly, their wealth, right? Because being in business for myself, I've had a couple clients that in relation towards that constant development and somewhat related towards investing, they didn't start out perfect, right? Like I remember dealing with one client, had a lot of debt, didn't have too much savings, basically was just committed towards work, school, and making sure his family, he's basically on survival mode. That consistent, you know, just being with them in terms of the mentorship that's been instilled with me, you know, I just started to breathe that off of him, right? Just making sure that apart from me being his financial coach, funny enough, majority of the time that I deal with my current clientele, it's not just the numbers, it's more the emotion. So I feel more of the therapist rather than financial coach. But the
That's
key
interesting.
behind that, because like in terms of understanding where they are, being empathetic, making sure that, you know, that it's going to be possible for them to eliminate their debt, and constantly meeting them on a consistent basis to make sure that I'm there with them in the trenches, that we're going to be able to work this out together in terms of actually eliminating your debt and making sure your portfolio works for you. An example for that certain individual, you know, I stuck with them ever since, like, even when he didn't have money, because I saw a friendship, a connection towards him. I had faith and belief that, you know what, as much as the situation may not be as perfect right now, right, he's going to be able to turn out to something perfect in the long term, right? And I saw him graduate school, saw him go through a couple of jobs, I did my best to even connect to other like jobs and opportunities to help him as well, right? And how, more importantly, he finally got something more stable, and now in the past like 2 years, he's on track to basically eliminating his debt, and more importantly, about to reinvest some of his money to his personal investment account to pay out with me. So the key thing is that when it comes to a whole the compound interest side, in terms of the personal development on the financial side of things, is no different trying to work on your mind and trying to overcome fear and anxiety. Is no different than in terms of being able to like work out, lift weights, lose weight, gain muscle mass, and all those other aspect lines, because it takes continuous effort, right? You may read one article, be excited, saying, "Oh, it's possible to double my money in investment," but in order for you to do it, to consistently be at the amount of money that's supposed to be, it takes continuous purchases within that certain fund, that certain investment, and continuous progression throughout, especially in the marketplace itself, right? Look what happened when COVID happened, right? Stock markets basically plummeted, close down to 30%. But for those that were fearful and those that didn't know how had the right information, didn't have the right consistency, they got fearful and pulled out, But what if they were to really stick with them in that bottom period and really just wait it out? And funny enough, after coming into these early months of July, almost to the summertime, basically markets basically rebounded, right? And that basically reminds me, as much as that is great in terms of a product and an investment side, that reminds me of my story. Because at the times that obviously at the times that I was down, right, I could have backed out in the easiest way, but you kept on going forward, and that's why it's so important for those that don't understand investing. It's so important to be persistent in spite of how the markets fluctuate, especially for those that are very stock oriented. Just keep doing continuous purchases, to keep doing the concept of buying low, selling high. And for those that might need proper information towards that, because that's totally a different topic. So I'd be happy to help out, and for those that decide to reach out, and really just teaching the basics behind it as well.
So Brandon, to wrap up, our conversation, if someone was just getting started, what would be some common tips that you believe can apply across the board, regardless of your financial situation?
In terms of investing, correct?
Yeah, in terms of compound interest and investing.
So depending on where you live, so for anything advice specific for people living within Canada or let alone in Ontario, it's not really, people find that the myth with investing is that you need a lot of capital to start. Not really so, depending what type of investments that you want to get into. Say for example, for someone that's trying to save for even something as basic as house on a short-term to medium-term basis, or on a long-term basis for retirement, for someone to start up a TFSA or RSP, for those that are living in Canada, the minimum monthly start off each and every single month is no more than $25 a month, right?
$25?
$25 a month, right? Nothing more than that, right? And the way that the beauty of a TFSA and RSP works is the fact that it's nothing more than investment accounts with the actual tax advantage. The fact that money that grows with either a TFSA and RSP is not taxed at its growth. So if you put in $10,000, it would make $11,000 within the next year or so. That growth is not taxed, right? As long as it's remains sheltered within either an RSP or TFSA, right? The key difference is that when you withdraw out of an RSP, you're fully taxed to your current income. I like TFSAs a lot more because money is not taxed at growth and money is not also taxed at withdrawal, right? So for people to consistently do that on a monthly basis, great that they have that vehicle of the tax advantage between those accounts. But what really makes them work are the type of investments that's fueled within the RSP or TFSA, things into cash, things into bonds, things into individual stocks, or the most common form of investments that I deal with for majority or all of my clients is basically mutual funds. And having a right, type of mutual fund that works for them, right? Making sure that it contains the best portfolio possible, the best track record in terms of its years and performance. I say within at least 10 years at most, right? And at least averaging a return of at least above 4%. 8 to 12 is the best way in terms of growth, right? Because the way it works is that how compound interest really works is something called the rule of 72, right? So if anyone doesn't necessarily know what this rule is, the rule of 72 is nothing more than a rule that basically shows how many years it would take for money to double. So say, for example, if you had a $10,000 investment and it was performing at 1% rate of return, you did 72 divided by 1, it would take 72 years for $10,000 to turn to 20 grand. No one's going to wait till the time that they die for their investment to $10 because that doesn't make any sense. Versus the fact if it was 72 divided by 12, the amount of years for that $10,000 to double, instead of taking 72 years, it would take 6 years for it to double. So go figure. If you had an investment that was performing at 1% versus 12, I'm pretty sure people would choose 12.
Yeah, so guys, there's so many information here that you can learn from Brandon. And I know that he has a free gift where he walks you through how you can actually, just like what his mission, it's all about being properly protected, being debt free, and living a life that is financially independent. We're going to list all of his social media links and his website down below so that you can get in touch with him and, reach out to him because he's got so much information that will help you be financially literate. And what I love about here, Brandon, with what you said, it's really the dedication you have for people to be emotionally there with them, regardless of their current financial situation. And, I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. They don't really want to be sold, right? They're looking
No.
for support. They're looking for guidance. And I'm excited because I can definitely see your passion, and people can see that in the way that you speak today. So yeah, guys, if you love this episode, definitely share it with your friends and your loved ones. And if you live here in Canada, make sure you get connected with Brandon. Actually, even if you don't live in Canada, I'm sure he's got so much information that can help you get started with developing mental toughness, the power of perseverance, and even the power of investing, both in yourself and financially. So I'd like to thank my friend Brandon here for joining us. And
Thank you.
once again, we hope to see you on the next episode.